Hello, everyone. In my last video, I talked about the laziness myth, and today we're going to go one level deeper because understanding why focus is hard is what actually starts to changing things. So it's not about try harder deep, it's about practical, this is the way your brain really works. Hi, if you don't know me, my name is Shannon Schroeder. I am the F-Bomb coach, and I help ADHD women build sustainable systems for their businesses and their lives. So first, we're going to talk about what focus actually is. And it's just not an on and off switch. It is three different skills working together. Getting your attention onto something, so starting to pay attention to something, keeping it there, which is sustained attention, and then pulling it away when you're done. So when people say just focus, they're talking about all three of these things like they're one simple action, but they're not. For ADHD brains, any of these three things could be where things break down. Often they break down in different places on different days. It's not a consistent thing for you anywhere. So when focus feels impossible, it helps to know which part is actually struggling right now. Sustained attention is the one that gets ADHD brains the most because it's not about starting to pay attention, it's about maintaining it. So what is sustained attention? Things like reading more than 2 paragraphs without rereading them 4 times. Sitting through a meeting without mentally leaving the building. Working on one task without 17 browser tabs happening. Following a conversation without losing the thread halfway through. Here's the part that nobody tells you. Sustained attention is exhausting for ADHD brains in a way that it genuinely isn't for neurotypical ones. It takes more effort to do the same thing. The ADHD brain has a hair trigger alert system. Your brain is always asking, is this new, urgent, dangerous, interesting? If the answer is no, your brain starts looking for something that is. It's looking for that yes. And this isn't a flaw. Truly, evolutionarily, it was a superpower because think about cavemen, they're sitting there. The dude who pays attention while you're making your flatbread or you're starting a fire, whatever it is you're doing, the dude that is catching on to the fact that there's something rustling in the bush, he's the one who's going to live. He's like, danger, I'm out. The person who's just focusing on that task isn't hearing that. They're probably not going to live. But in today's world, where you have to do things like file your taxes quarterly, where you have to sit in Zoom calls that sometimes last hours, that hair trigger scanning system works against you. Your brain isn't being difficult. It's doing what it was created to do, what it was built to do, but it's doing it in an environment that it wasn't built for. Background noise is a huge problem. There are always things competing for your attention. And the thing is that it's not just external distractions, you have internal noise as well. Neurotypical brains have a better filter. They can kind of just push that stuff to the background. They know that there's, a loud conversation happening in the hallway, or maybe a truck just went by, or your cat just ran under your feet, and they can just kind of ignore that, whereas you are being pulled constantly in all of those directions. For you, that filter of being able to push things out is patchy at best. So when someone says just tune it out, they're describing a skill that your brain doesn't execute reliably. That's the way your brain is wired. And this is why environment matters so much for your brain. And we're going to talk about that in a future video. We're not going to get sidetracked here. But for now, you have to know that the internal noise is real, it's exhausting, and it's not your fault. And there's a huge effort gap between that neurotypical brain and the neurodivergent brain. A neurotypical brain, focusing for them is like driving on a smooth highway. They're just right on through. For an ADHD brain trying to focus, you're driving on that same highway, but you're doing it with a flat tire in a storm with someone in the back seat yammering questions at you nonstop. You both arrive at the same place, but you are exhausted when you get there. It's not that you can't focus, it's that focus costs you more, which means that you run out of fuel faster. It means that by 2 o'clock, when everybody else still has fuel in the tank and they're still ready to go, they can pay attention to a 3 o'clock meeting and you can't do it for even 5 minutes. It's that you no longer have gas in your tank. You're empty, even though you've done the same work. And that's not laziness on your part. That's running an engine that's just more expensive. And this is the thing that confuses people, even ourselves. Because you say to yourself, but I focused for 4 hours in that one thing. Yes, you did, because that thing had the ingredients that your brain needed. The goal isn't to force focus on everything equally. The goal is to understand what your brain needs and then engineer more of those conditions into your work so that it becomes easier for your brain to focus. I want you to stop and think about the last time you sat down and just yelled at yourself to focus. Try harder. How did that work out? The intention is right. You want to be able to do the thing that you're supposed to do. The approach is working against your neurology, because when you push through, when you just force yourself, when you yell at yourself to do it so you could be like everyone else, the anxiety spikes. Your brain goes into threat mode. Cortisol floods the system. The prefrontal cortex goes partially offline because you flipped your lid. And now you're even less focused than when you started, and you are exhausted. Stress is the enemy of sustained attention for an ADHD brain. Not the friend, certainly not the motivator, the enemy. So when you go into one of those shame spirals, beating yourself up to talk about why can't you do this? Why are you so lazy? Everybody else, you should be able to. That is actively making it worse. Your focus probably varies wildly day to day. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It's just your brain. You need to normalize what your brain is. The goal is not to achieve perfect, consistent, steady focus every day. That's the neurotypical standard. You can't apply that to a neurodivergent brain. The goal is to understand your patterns, work with your rhythms, and stop beating yourself up when the tank is just empty. Some days are going to be hard. That doesn't mean that you've fallen off the wagon. It's a relapse. That's just like a regular Tuesday, right? It happens. You need to start understanding that, accepting that, and then structuring the parts of your life that you can to feed into it to make it easier. What does this mean for you? Start making small shifts. Notice which part of focus that you're struggling with. Is it the starting, the staying, or the stopping? Try to reduce some of that internal noise before expecting yourself to sustain attention. Look at what parts of the day you have higher energy, more ability to focus, and then match your high energy tasks, the things that really need the focus, to those windows of high energy that you have. Give yourself permission to work in shorter bursts. Yes, the Pomodoro method is great, but maybe 25 minutes is not the right number for your brain. Maybe your perfect number is 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Give yourself permission to do that instead of trying to force yourself to focus when your brain's not going to have it. And then please stop measuring yourself against neurotypical standards. None of these things on this list are magic, but all of them are rooted in how your brain actually works, which makes them infinitely more useful than just focus. Focus feels hard because it is hard for your brain. That's a mismatch between your brain and the world that it wasn't designed for. We can't change the entire world, but we can change how we approach it. Thank you for joining me today. As always, if this has resonated with you, hit like, subscribe so that you know when the next video drops.